Good afternoon from Kigali, Rwanda's capital. This evening, CNBC Africa would like to put a spotlight on the unemployment question in the region. As we focus on East Africa, we'd like to explore what really are the opportunities and challenges in East Africa. And this month, our focus is on unemployment in Rwanda. And we'd like to really explore, is this a real situation? Is this a challenge? And what are the real opportunities thereof? My name is Bonnie Tunya, and this is CNBC Africa. Well, joining me to drive this conversation and try to understand Rwanda's unemployment is Pascal Gatabazi, who's a principal at the Tumba College of Technology. Also, we have Madam Anne Mugabo, who's the Director General of Labor and Employment in the Ministry of Public Service and Labor. Also, we have Denis Carrera, serial entrepreneur and chairman of the East African Business Council. Later on this show, Albert Rudasimbi Mburwa will be joining us in this conversation. He is a founder of Contact Trend. Gentlemen and lady, obviously, there's a lot to talk about when you talk about unemployment in the region, and probably I'll start with Madame Anne because you speak for the government. And whenever we talk about unemployment, we always go to the government. And the Rwandan government also places the ILO formula of measuring unemployment is what it uses, which basically says this would measure the number of people actively looking for a particular kind of job. This places the Rwandan unemployment rate at 13.2% as of February 2016. And I know this figure has changed, but give us a sense of the true picture when we talk about unemployment in Rwanda.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. Thanks for inviting us to this discussion. First of all, before we talk about unemployment in Rwanda, let's recall we have about 11 million people. And out of the 11 million people, I would say 5.5 form our labor force. So we have about 2.9 women out of that labor force, a million, I mean. Then you have about 3.2 million people who are female, who are men, who are male. So unemployment really in Rwanda, if I gave you the figure, I would say it's 2%. Annual unemployment rate is 2% in our country. But if you listen to it, you say, wow.
How do they do this? Yes.
How do they do this?
Those numbers are not true.
You say this is you don't have real unemployment in Rwanda.
Right.
But if you really want to understand the real unemployment rate in Rwanda, you look at the different categories of people. First of all, unemployment among graduates, as you said, is about 14%. And when you go down, among the secondary school leavers, we have like 11%, and then 2% among people who probably unskilled unskilled. Right. I would also want to emphasize that unemployment is more severe among graduates, as I said, and also it's more of a city kind of problem or phenomenon. What does it mean? Unemployment in the northern province is not the same unemployment in Kigali. So we find unemployment shooting high in cities, shooting high more, especially in Kigali, than in other parts of the country. So I would say, I just wanted to give you a picture of unemployment in Rwanda. But indeed, if we have 14% population, 14% of our people being unemployed and they are graduates, then it calls for concerted efforts from all of us here to think of what do we do, and as a government, what do we do to address this challenge. Right.
Let me just come to Pascal, because this whole conversation comes to your doorstep. You run a college that is synonymous to TVET, as it were. Give us a sense of from where you sit and the kind of students that go through your institution. How big a challenge is unemployment in Rwanda?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, you cannot talk about unemployment without linking with the supply of skills. Right. So when we are talking about the graduates from my institution, it is true that when our graduates finish their studies at the college, they struggle with getting employed. Whether it is getting employed by someone or creating their own jobs. Right. I think what is important for me is what we do, what we deploy at the college when they are still at the college to prepare them to enter the labor market. I can quickly also mention, like my colleague just mentioned, We run surveys every year. So one of the surveys we run is the tracer survey,
right,
to find out where our where our graduates are and what are they doing. The figures shows that about 70% after 1 year of graduation, our graduates are able to get their destination. We define destination either whether employed by someone or starting up on business.
Right.
So maybe I take this opportunity to mention what are the mechanisms we have tried to deploy to prepare our graduates to enter the labor market.
Right.
Number one, I mentioned about in 2 or 3 categories. Number one is to make sure that we give them the right program, the relevancy of training. Mm-hmm. Our institution was able to engage with the labor market. We ran annually a forum of talking with the private sector. There is what we created, we call it the Technical Advisory Group. Right. The TAG is the forum that links my institution with the labor market. And through this kind of a forum, we are able to learn the dynamics mm-hmm. that are happening in the labor market, and right. it feeds back in our program. Right. That's number one. Number two is to make sure that we have infrastructure at the college to facilitate imparting knowledge and skills to the young people. Right. And another thing we have tried to deploy at the college level is to put in place facilities like business incubation. So we have facilities at the college mm-hmm. whereby we are able to nurture a business idea that may result into a business when they graduate. Right. So I may agree with you that graduates in Rwanda may struggle to get employed because of the issues of what I can call half-baked graduate. Right. A graduate that was not well given the proper package. Right. At the training, in right. the training process.
I'd like us to shift that in, because we'll come back to that conversation of do we have the requisite skills. Let me just bring in Dennis, because Dennis, your job basically is to create employment as an entrepreneur in this country. Are you happy with the kind of labor, the kind of people getting into the labor market? Are you happy with the kind of skills they have knocking at your door to look for a job?
Happiness in those of us who provide employment, happiness ranges from what skills you are looking for. That creates our happiness. When we are looking for skilled labor, that we get, but with difficulties. Right. Just to address the Rwandan specific question. Skilled labor, we get them, but with a bit of difficulty. When I interview 20 people for a job, mm-hmm. it's rare that 3 will pass. And I'm usually very apprehensive with the kind of skills they get from universities. And I keep wondering, why are they failing the interview? Right. And I've seen this across board, and most of my other colleagues in the field. The tendency of, I think from the training institutions, there was on one hand, the need or the drive or the urge by the young people to go for papers for the sake of it. Right. And where we sit, we are not so much interested in papers. You don't employ papers? We don't employ papers. Right. We look very much for what Pascal is saying. Our need is, be it in business, be it in technical services, be it in advisory, be it in accounting, you want to know, can this person actually put a skill to the job that I want to be done? Right. So we usually meet a mismatch. You get so many papers, but out of all these applicants, you don't get the quality student that you want. So we've had different engagements with the academia on, do we have the employable person? Who is the best employable graduate? Right. We've had discussions with across the region, by the way. In fact, next week we have an academia private and public partnership dialogue in Dar es Salaam. The key thing is to address who is the best or who is the most suitable employable graduate. And we're looking across East Africa. Right. So in Rwanda in particular, I have met several cases who, yes, you can employ, you can try to nurture, you can train, but it does not match the degree that you actually see in writing. And it's actually costly for you as a business person. It's costly. Right. I'm coming to that. So to us, we are more looking into the Pascal direction. Right. Can you prepare people, not just for papers? Can they come with skills that actually transform into jobs for us? And again, when we are defining an employment, we need to understand, is it a job for which you wait for a paycheck, a monthly, or a job that you actually are able to pay yourself within a week at the end of your
and that is a good thing,
day.
because I was trying to study this and trying to figure out what really is a true measure of unemployment, and it's very relative depending on what you look for, and that's why I went with the ILO, which has its own limitations when you look at the different emerging markets. But let's just go with the ILO one that says that, for example, the unemployment rate in Rwanda averaged just about 1.8% from 2001 to 2012, which is a very good and comfortable number by all standards if you look at the East African market. But Madam DG, your ministry, together with other 18 stakeholders, launched the month-long awareness campaign, which I know is well known here in Rwanda, about the National Employment Program. During this particular program, what sort of skills do you seek to put out there to employers like Dennis when you say this month we're talking about employment in Rwanda and trying to improve that?
Thank you, Bonnie. We are not going out for this campaign to impart people, to convince people to take certain skills. What we are trying to do in this campaign, first of all, is we need to dialogue with the private sector, to discuss with the private sector, and also to discuss with the beneficiaries, and also to take the National Employment Program to the grassroots level. So I would say we first need to listen to the likes of Dennis.
Right. But likes of Dennis are saying,
and also,
the people who are coming through can't do the job.
Exactly. And also discuss with the Tumba and other colleges to see how do we match this. So during this campaign, we formed a team. First of all, we looked at the skills needed in our labor market. And then we also looked at what does our private sector need. And then we also looked at what does the population or what do they need, the beneficiaries, what do they need? We look at the kind of interventions we have. Then we say, do these interventions also respond to labor market needs? Do these interventions also help our people to actually understand and also know the opportunities that are available? Do colleges or institutions of higher learning really know the challenges the private sector is facing? And
the question is, do they, Pascal?
So the question is now, if they know, I think we know. But when we go to this campaign, we are like, there are opportunities. It's never too late. Whatever we find is a challenge, we need first of all to discuss and dialogue and see what does our private sector, how do you drive this change of really getting the right skills? How do colleges help us to get the right people in the labor market? So we need to sit together. And this is what we have decided to say. Let's go out there. And also, we are planning for the people. People need to be involved.
So sorry, madam, but what exactly does the National Employment Program do for Rwanda?
At the moment, National Employment Program has, I would say, 2 or 3 major components. The first component is the Employability and Skills Program, which is led by the Ministry of Education. Under this program, we have various components. So we have the rapid response training. This is where the private sector or somebody, you're an investor, you come and talk to us and say, I have this kind of business. I need you people to help me. How can you help me get the right skills or the right people to work for me? Then we say, wow, this is an opportunity that we cannot miss. So we normally
requests many?
Sorry?
Are those kinds of requests many?
Oh, there are many. So what we normally do, we partner with the Workforce Development Authority, WDA, to actually, we link the WDA with the investor, and then we advise them what kind of courses do you want, the people you want to train in, and WDA takes the lead to train those people. And we see it really, because we are training people for the job. We are training people to employment. So we find it's really paying a lot in terms of creating opportunities for the people. I would also say we have massive rapid training. Here we are saying, so if we identify an opportunity, we get like over 1,000 people. We train them in a specific trade. So if you want, we can train these people for 3 months,
Right.
and they can easily be absorbed in the labor market. The another component, we also have entrepreneurship. We partner with the private sector to make sure that people get the right trainings, or we make sure that people get apprenticeships. We get apprenticeship programs,
Right.
and internship program. We partner with the private sector.
Right.
So we see really people responding to this kind of programs. Then we have another one, which is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship development, we have trained many people in this field. NEP in general has created about 80,000 jobs, close to 80,000 jobs,
Right.
just in a period of 2 years. So what we have done, NEP actually under the entrepreneurship development, we have the business advisor services. These people train people to prepare bankable projects. In the past, we used to have a problem of people preparing projects, and maybe sometimes they would submit them to banks and they would be rejected.
Right.
So today, people are prepared, and also for those who don't have sufficient guarantee, we link them to business development, so to BDF, which is the Business Development Fund. And BDF actually provides a guarantee for the youth at about 75%.
Right.
And then, of course, you make your own contribution, which is about 25%.
Right.
And also for women, it's also 75%. So we really see that people who come on the labor market sometimes don't even have income. They don't have anything.
So
They don't have any history.
NEP is
So,
working
Yeah,
for the Rwandan case.
exactly.
Let me just put a pause and jump to Pascal, because Pascal, there's a question of, it seems very clear that the kind of education and the kind of training that we are giving to the young people of Rwanda is not what Dennis is looking for at the end of the day. But the question is, why do we still have a lot more youth opting to go to universities or these sort of training facilities that do not really equip them for what awaits them in life?
I think it has been the question of mindset. People for a long period of time used to think of success through education is to go through universities.
Right.
But things have changed. Things have changed whereby the labor market is demanding skills, is demanding what you can do than the papers you have. So this is what's happening in Rwanda. We have this trend that the technical education is getting attraction of young people because they get the right skills that the labor market is looking for. A quick example I can give you. Recently in Rwanda, we launched the use of drones to supply drugs within Rwanda. The first of its kind in Africa, I think.
Right. Supply medicine.
Yes.
Because drugs would be a different kind of drug.
Okay. Medicine is a drug, by the way. And the best student or graduate who did it with our HE, His Excellency, was my graduate. So I want to really turn around this narrative that we are not supplying the right skills.
Right.
It's all about how institutions position themselves to produce the graduate we want.
Right.
The graduate.
Do the institutions have the kind of requirements that entrepreneurs like Dennis are looking for? Do they know that that is what is there? Because institutions might have well laid out programs that they give out, but that is not necessarily what, not just Dennis, but what Rwanda needs right now.
I would say leadership of institutions plays a big role, because there is what you do beyond the classical arrangement of leading an institution.
Right.
If I speak, I'm sorry, I will speak for my institution more than generalizing.
Sure.
So what we have been deploying at our own institution is to make sure that we have a direct link with the private sector. We have a forum where we discuss with the private sector on an annual basis to learn what are the dynamics that are happening in the private sector, to make sure that we are training for the relevancy, if our training programs are relevant to the need from the private sector.
Right.
So we have always been feeding into our curriculum. But not only that, but also engaging the private in terms of sending our students for industry attachment.
Right.
And also, yes, having this kind of a forum creates a two-way relationship so that when they want to employ, it facilitates. I may not say that we have succeeded to a big scale of saying 100%.
Right.
But we are on the track. The best way to go is to engage the private sector.
Right.
And also, I would encourage the private sector not to wait to be supplied with the skills.
Right.
So I would challenge the private sector to be involved in the process.
As you challenge the private sector, I see Dennis wants to come in. Dennis, is this line of communication clear that academia and training institutions know what the industry needs and able to train their students to respond to that? Because maybe you would be requiring a certain skill that the academia knows is not aware that that is what is needed now. So is this line of communication there, and is it clear?
Yes, it is there. It is there, and it's my call actually to all high institutions of learning to keep up this interesting engagement between the academia and the private sector, because not until you actually interface, then you do not know what are the requirements the other side, what are the qualifications on this side. The old dream, and I keep repeating this, the old dream that you're pursuing a degree in history, in geography, in some of these things are not, yes, they're good to know, but they're not really relevant.
They're just not relevant
to the job
at
market,
this stage of the economy.
There's good dialoguing now going on regionally. We have this structured public partnership, academia, the private sector and the public engagement with the academia, constantly going on every year. And the idea is to review what our needs now. What used to happen in the old situation, as you may recall and will remember, certain industries or certain employment organizations used to support a student XYZ, like they do for footballers.
Right.
Chelsea will, shop out a young footballer at young age. So they would fish out the best students from a college and the rest, so where are the rest going to go? Or who will this person work alone?
Right.
So what we do now, we don't simply spot out the best student and say, let this one be for me. Our engagement now with heads of institutions has been generally, what is the requirement? What are the business trends today? Take a case of Rwanda. The industry where I belong mainly is the real estate. How many people are training people in real estate development? Understanding real estate, construction itself, different aspects of construction that they were across board, because the last thing you want to do is to start up a project and you are going to look for people from India, from China, from what. You, of course, are aware that we have sites in East Africa here, a construction site where you have 200 Chinese labor force.
Happens in Nairobi, happens in Dar es Salaam.
It happens everywhere. And you wonder, did you have to fly 200 Chinese to do construction here? And what they are doing are basic things, a driver of a crane, an operator of one of the machines on site, and they call these scientific skills.
But Dennis,
important.
are young people willing to take up these skills? Because
this
that is
my
the other
call,
conversation.
Yeah.
Because
this is my call to...
We'll be telling them this is what they need, but maybe that's not what they want.
This is my call to the Labor Ministry, to the Ministry of Education. We have seen this, we engage students. Actually, we do actually receive students who are interning with us, and we tell them, look, the blue-collar job is no more. It's not there. If you have to be employed today, first of all, to expect that somebody is going to employ you, the old school thinking, I'm going to be employed Ministry X, wait for this check at the end of the month, that doesn't happen. All ministries and governments, generally across the region and beyond, have downsized the number of employees each time a year, downscaling of employees.
Right.
So that means governments take as few as possible, but governments avail opportunities through which people should think of their own projects.
I see Pascal wants to make a comment. I'll take Pascal's comment before we take a break, but then also what you've said also brings us to another question of, it's not just about students or young people wanting these opportunities. There's a conversation of underemployment and whether or not people getting into these kinds of job are getting value for their time and getting the right kind of pay. We'll get into that discussion after the break, but let's have Pascal.
Yes, I think there is no problem with the young people willing to undertake some training that leads them into some specific employment. To me, I would put it on record that there's no problem with the mindset of the young people joining that kind of a trend that may lead them into whatever employment may be available in the labor market. I think it's all about how our system prepare them and guides them into proper channels of training that leads them into specific training. And I think this is what Anne was saying. We have a lot of foreign direct investment that is coming in here, and Rwanda is developing is developing very fast. So, and we have to cope with that with supplying the right skills. So my brother Dennis talked about having many people imported from somewhere else. Yes, I agree with him. But this is what NEP, the National Employment Program, is coming in to do, because the NEP is assessing what is coming in the investment and connects with institutions like us in producing the right skills. A quick example would be, we have a textile industry that came in recently, and at the beginning, they wanted more than 200 people to get employed. Through the NEP initiative, quickly, we trained people in textile industry, and they were able to get employed, all of them. So I think there is a number of initiatives that is going on, and at the end of the day, we may win. But I may agree, in the process we are struggling. We have to accept that we have shortages of skills here and there. The quality, how can I put it? The people who can do the quality job. I may agree with everyone that we have this problem where people were like half-baked. They were not properly baked. And this is what we are confronting.
All right.
Maybe before we go for the break.
Before you go for a break, in less than a minute, please.
Yeah. Can I just say, we have two programs, actually, which respond to Dennis's problem. One is the reconversion program. So if you did history or something that maybe you did the languages and have been on the labor market for quite some time, what National Employment Program does is that we take on these people, then we channel them through Workforce Development Authority, where they learn hands-on skills for a period of 3 months. Either you may decide to do cookery, you may decide to do...
But are they willing?
Very much so. We have, actually, the first intake, I think we have over 500 people.
The demand is high, actually.
The demand is high. And also we have another program which is led by Minister of Education, which is the career guidance. With this program, we are seeing Minister of Education actually working hand right from secondary level, primary level, to concentrate on career guidance, even to the university level. So before you come to the labor market, you have to understand what you're going to do. Are you going to pursue history? And if you pursue history, what will be the repercussions? Will you get a job?
Exactly. Where does it take you?
Will it take you to the labor market? Will it give you any opportunity on the labor market? So these are things we are doing, and actually I'm proud that it's working. And maybe we'll give ourselves time, so in the next time, people will not be just taking things for granted. They'll be pursuing fields which are really relevant on the labor market.
Interesting. Let's put a pause right there, and we'll be jumping back into that conversation. If you're joining us, we're interrogating Rwanda's unemployment. It's a special focus right here on CNBC Africa. Time for a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. You're watching CNBC Africa, and today we are in Rwanda's capital in Kigali, where we interrogate the country's unemployment rate as we focus on Rwanda's unemployment. I've been speaking to Dennis Karera, who's an entrepreneur and chairman of the East African Business Council. Also, Madam Anne Mugabo, Director General of Labor and Employment in the Ministry of Public Service and Labor. I've also had on my panel Pascal Gatabazi, Principal at the Tumba College of Technology. And joining us right now is Albert Rudatsimburgwa, who is the founder at Contract Trend. Albert, I hope I got your name correct.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, before we took a break and before Albert joined us, we were looking at exactly why are we getting some sort of a mismatch between the kind of training that we give and the kind of requirement that entrepreneurs and the labor market requires. And there was a conversation about underemployment. And it brings to my question, I just want to start off at Dennis. Yes, we say we need young people to take up this sort of training. We say there's a lot of jobs in this space. But is there the right pay for this kind of jobs?
Interesting question you asked. First of all, we refer to them as young people.
Because we're assuming it's youth unemployment,
yes,
right?
It's youth unemployment. And so young people, on the other hand, should quite understand from the start that they should start with young money. The problem I have, the problem I have often seen is that somebody leaves university, and the first conversation you have with, or one question that I usually ask in my interview, I ask people, what is your salary expectation? And you have no idea the figures I listen to. And I say, but why don't you start young? You're a young man, start slow. So the ambitions, how our young people manage expectations, income expectations, should also be aligned to realities of companies.
But the question is, where are they getting this sort of income expectations from?
You see, where you get expectations for cash requirements are demands by day-to-day living. Student from university, young graduate wants to hang out a little bit, wants to spend on this, wants a new suit, wants a new this, think of a TV, think of a radio, think of getting married, think of they have one other child or something like that. So these are all demands that tend to impact on them. And as a result, true to what I have actually seen through interviews, somebody tells you, you know, I'm looking for a job, but I have this, my family, my wife, my this. And I'm like, so am I giving you employment to take care of your issues, or I'm employing you for you to do my work? So the way they manage their income expectations should also be guided through colleges, through people should be humble to start young. Start young man, and then you grow with the man. As you grow in employment, you grow your skill, you grow even in terms of income. In any case, anyway, a lot of income could also be very misleading to young people in employment. You need to go slow. You give a lot of money to these people, they'll go mad with it.
There are people who are saying maybe Dennis does not quite understand Generation Y and their employment requirements. But Anne, you brought a very good point about career guidance and the fact that this plays a very important role, and that's one of the things that you do from as early as secondary school or primary school. Just tying to what Dennis is saying, have we mismanaged the expectations of people getting into the labor force such that they get with the wrong kind of expectations, and no wonder they sort of give up?
Thank you. To respond to what Dennis was talking about, first of all, we need to look at our past, our history as a country. It would be unfair to think that Rwanda just came yesterday and everything must be superb. So as a country, we appreciate where we are. We've come from far in terms of what was there before, in terms of education. Literally, if you ask this man, how many colleges were there? I think there was only one college, or not one college. Today we have more than 300 colleges. I mean, TVET and VTCs. So once we are done with massive education, massive institutions, then we also have to look at the curriculum. Does the curriculum really match with the labor market needs? So it was not training for the sake of training, but there was literally nothing before. So I would not put the blame on the people who are the labor market, who are joining the labor market, but I would probably focus a lot on our past. But we cannot dwell on our past. I'm simply saying, let's forget our past and concentrate on what do we have to do now. What should we put right? We have to change the curriculum to see that the curriculum really responds to labor market needs. We also have to look at the graduates. They need to be guided. Those days,
but who does this guiding?
It's the Minister of Education. The Minister of Education is really taking part and fully engaged in this. Remember, in the past, we would have graduates, senior 6 graduates, which I think used to call it A0, A1, A2, and you say, super, you come on the labor market, you're a graduate. But things have changed. You need to compete. The labor market is, dynamics are really changing.
And there are more people.
There are many people coming on the labor market, many opportunities that need a lot of qualified people. We also have to change, we have to train our people to change our attitude, their attitude. So this is what Dennis is saying. Having done all this, we have put institutions in place. We are working on the curriculum. We are working with the career guidance. And then we advise people to take on the right courses that actually help them to be integrated in the labor market. So it's not that there was really ignorance, or it's not that there was really like people didn't know what to do.
Right.
But you also have to take into consideration our past. This is what I really want to emphasize, but we've come out of there.
Right. Let me just bring in Albert joining this conversation. And we were saying, yes, there's a apparent need of matching the skills and the labor requirements, and that difficult job is Pascal that's doing it. But also we're trying to interrogate why aren't we seeing a lot of young people being attracted to alternative sorts of training. And I was wondering, is the right kind of pay matching the job that they're getting? And why would a young person who knows that, for example, we need more people in the construction site want to go and study history and anthropology, for example?
Now, I hope you won't stop the guy who really wants to go for anthropology and history and just drop. You can do a side job in construction to make more right. coins, but still go for it. But let me try to respond to that by combining different aspects to it. Aspiration, speculation about what the pay would be, there's a problem because everybody is connected online, on TVs, right. They will see video clips, they go bling bling, make it rain. Right. Even our artists think the same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, they immediately want to show, like, if they are there, right. They still have to build up. You get the same mentality in that generation to think, I'm out of school, and now I'm in the world, I want to be exactly like Dennis.
Like somebody else.
So, but like somebody else, actually.
Right.
So there is of course, there is a need there to have a kind of, another kind of content in general that put people back where we are. We don't say again or bring back the past somewhere in passing our memory of where we're coming from also right. to that generation. I mean, they just got it like if everything was there forever, you know? We don't, in fact, involve them enough in that we are coming from somewhere. Secondly, in general, the main player has always been government. We have a very small private sector.
Right.
So this private sector hasn't become the role model yet. We don't know how you get into private sector. The private sector is not visible for real. Mm-hmm. So once you're going to and you finish your school, there is a gap because people are jumping into real life. I think there, and that is what I want to share with my friends panels here, is that there could be an incubation time where when you finish school, because you don't have, because of the size of a small private sector, right. You don't have all the headhunting guys ready to get them out of school right. and give them internship, let them feel the real life, the pressure of delivery and all that, but without being the real employed.
But Albert, somebody else will say, why don't you just fix that in the education system?
No,
why not create?
Exactly.
Who funds that space and who is responsible? But let me just bring in Pascal to respond to that.
But really, there, right. And I'll let you go. To recreate an internship in between before you really go that incubation coming from school. So it is a combination between education and private sector.
Right, Pascal.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very interesting topic, as you're saying. Yes, I agree with him, the incubation. But you don't have to wait to graduate in order to enter the incubation.
Right.
So we need to embed incubation within the learning process. And this is what we're trying to do also at my college.
Right.
We have a facility, we call it an incubation center, where we incubate some business ideas. These young people have got so many wonderful ideas. The only thing which has been missing is it's about the mindset. And I'm happy, Rwanda is doing so many wonderful things, including preparing us, the leaders of academic institutions, to engage the young people, give them civic education
right.
that prepare them to enter the labor market with an idea of creating own jobs.
Right.
And this is going on. And I'm sure it will bring results.
Let me just throw a spanner in the works, because people like Albert and Dennis will put out an advertisement and say, we need somebody who has at least 3 years experience. How do people get experience if they don't get a chance? And I want you to respond to that, because this is a big conversation in the African market. You will say the university graduates are half-baked. they cannot do the job. But they needed to learn something about the job. They just don't have a system. And kindly respond to that, then I'll get to the entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me say, I wouldn't say they're half-baked. What you do at school or in the university is totally different from the labor market. I think this is
and that's why we need to change it, because
this is what we need to understand.
The wrong thing.
The theories we get in school are totally different from the realities of the labor market. And if for example, you did any course and you come on the labor market, what you did is simply theory, introducing the basics of what the labor market is.
Right.
But when you come to the reality, the private sector should help us train these people, put them on board.
At whose cost?
Give them at their
That is
cost.
what Dennis and Albert are thinking, because
at their cost.
all governments, if you go to Nairobi or Tanzania,
cost.
they will say
When
the private sector should do A, B, C. But the private sector is saying, we don't have that kind of money. The government should do this.
Excuse me, by the way, let me put this right. Today, small as you said, our private sector is, it employs about 97% of the people who come on the labor market.
Right.
97%
And the government,
of 10% employees.
So, and government only employs only 3%.
Right.
So, if you're employing 97%, then you have to shoulder, you have to take on responsibility of making sure that people who come on the labor market actually are equipped with the right skills. You know what you want as an employer.
Here, if the entrepreneurs agree to that.
You know what you want as an employer.
Right.
So it's your responsibility to make sure
that
you teach me how to operate a machine.
All
then
right.
I will do it perfectly well.
Madam Anne, we're coming to you. Let's hear Dennis first.
Responding to what Anne says, the last year, the last meeting we had here, the public-private partnership and academia dialogue we had here, we had key resolutions, which I thought really focused and addressed the need. We made recommendations which were to, because we were sitting with the rectors of universities, and we made clear recommendations that the job market requires specific skills, and we know the skills. I know what the people in my industry in tourism want. I know what people in construction want. I know. So we recommended that we have constant dialoguing and exchange of information on, are all my people employed, like you said? Where are they? Track them actually, know where they are. But over and above that, I don't think we have a problem incubating people. Internships are one of the things we recommended at that forum.
And apprenticeships.
Yes, and apprenticeships. A lot of time, by the way, the fact I mentioned earlier, notwithstanding, that people want money. People want money today. He wants to go with money back home. It's normal that interns come and don't demand that much. They want to be facilitated, but they want to learn more. Actually, in essence, interns should be paying you.
Right.
But I don't think this is our practice in the market.
Right.
We don't ask interns to pay us.
Right.
But our people I'm quite personally in the tourism industry. I'm into real estate. We don't ask people to pay anything. We actually take in people to see if it will cut down my costs, employing people from nearby, as opposed to.
And there's a conversation of employers exploiting interns. We'll get to that in a bit. But let me just bring in Pascal, and then we'll get to Albert regarding this issue of. We are saying, while there might be challenges in the education sector, maybe is the landing pad that they need when they come from the education system to the job market. That transition is what we're talking about. Give us a sense of what is the ideal and what would work for an economy like Rwanda.
Yes, there is a number of initiatives that have been taken in Rwanda, especially supporting interns, like my brother is saying. The government puts policies that guides even the private sector and graduates so that they can be facilitated. Right. And there is also a government institution that is supposed to facilitate the graduate to undergo internship program. So this is key, because through getting interns in the private sector enjoys, if I can say, I don't want to say it for him, but enjoys that labor that is not costly, but in the process, our graduates also learn the real world of work. And after internship program, most of them are likely to be employed. So this transition is key and is important. And like this kind of dialogue of the training institutions working in the private sector is important for the private sector to understand their contribution or role in the training process, because at the end they benefit from a skilled labor, if I can call it so. So, and I'm sure the private sector has been very positive on this.
Right.
And I'm sure the government also puts in the policy that is favorable, supports the private sector to support interns without. We have seen in other countries where we have the training levy,
right,
where the private sector participate in putting fund in a, if I can call it a pool fund,
right,
that is called the training levy, that is pulled from the private sector,
right,
that supports the training process.
Right.
So this kind of a partnership is key in producing the right skills that meets the requirement of the labor market without the private sector undergoing
right,
the process of training again someone who is supposed to be already trained.
Right. We'll get back to that, but Albert, let's just hear your point. Then I'll get back to Anne to respond on how can governments encourage people like Dennis and other entrepreneurs to engage young people in this training before they get into the real crux of working in the labor market.
We have in Rwanda a particular situation where we have a privileged time because we've been rebuilding. And in rebuilding, we've been making choices. And in making these choices, even the private sector, the size of the private sector today is there because of the support of the government. So this could go on to the next stage, because we have already reached one stage, but the next stage should be now to produce beyond that,
right,
a bigger private sector. So I personally believe that school should be school. After school, let's have it.
Right.
Let's have it after school. And let's have there a partnership where you have government supporting private sector, that you also need to push private sector, because private sector is still weak. So for them also to say, you know, you need to understand the benefit, blah, 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 but they were still building up. So if you have a private-public partnership there,
right,
to have that incubation, that is that time that after school, but before real life, but already inside real life. And I think there is a need there to support private sector, to support it, because it is, as long as we are still so small,
right,
we can still do those choices.
Right.
And I think that is where we should go. But you need that thing that is not more school and that people get into reality.
Right. And are there opportunities for the government to partner or to encourage or to incentivize entrepreneurs in offering this sort of facility? Because we know other markets where entrepreneurs are told, if you take this X number of interns, then we'll exempt you from X, Y, Z. Is that arrangement even possible in this market?
Those arrangements are there,
right,
because let me first talk about, we have already a policy on, it's called the workplace learning policy. This policy focuses on apprenticeship, induction training, and much more on the dual system of kind of training. So like for TVET graduates, before you come on the labor market, you first do like a week or 2 weeks in school, and then the remaining days you go and work in a factory or in an industry.
Right.
That way we think people will be equipped with the right skills required on the labor market. Secondly, we have what we call the CPCs, the community processing centers.
Mm-hmm.
They are called Rugandi Wachu.
Right.
These are small micro enterprises. So these small micro enterprises, they are supposed to help people train or absorb many people to be trained, and also make sure that they're equipped with the right skills on the labor market. But even before we talk about that,
right,
what really, I think you've been reading about Rwanda,
mm-hmm,
Rwanda becoming a third in doing business.
right,
That's good enough. I mean, Rwanda has lots of the good in working.
It's good for entrepreneurs, but for young people, yeah, who want to start.
Of course.
Difficult. Right.
Then this access to electricity. Government is doing a lot to make sure that even the least, I would say, areas, rural areas have electricity. Electricity is good enough for job creation. Electricity is good enough for many industries to develop, many factories to develop, many SMEs to develop.
Right.
So in that way, people will be getting access to opportunities that will equip them with the right skills, especially when they come and they get trained in those SMEs. Talk about also the stable macroeconomic and predictable environment. We have had for quite some time stable inflation, stable macroeconomic policies, which actually respond to labor market needs, I would say. So we also have the stable GDP of about 7%.
Right.
So, I mean, when you couple these things together,
Albert is
all these are good,
and our time is running.
good
I
I want to
points.
come in.
Good points.
I want to come in
They
on
don't
that.
agree with the
Good
government. And allow me to, because of time.
Good
allow me
points
to-
for SMEs growth.
Right.
And these SMEs actually take on many graduates
Right.
that who come on the labor market and they are given the right skills.
Right.
So I'm sure the dual system, SMEs development is the answer to
I want
most
to
of the
give you
things.
guys a chance for each to give what you see as the biggest opportunity in the conversation we've been having about unemployment. But I just want a minute for Albert and Dennis to react to what Anne said, and then we'll come back to Dennis as we go around to give us your closing comments. And in your closing comments, we've talked about the challenges, we've talked about what needs to be done. I want us to give what do we see as the biggest opportunity for Rwanda in addressing this whole employment situation. So, Albert, go first.
Just a reaction, and on my parting shot, I'll do that. The backside of what you just said is a problem. Is finance, money cost more than anywhere else here. Access to finance. Taxes are high and stiff. So all of that is not helping a starting entrepreneur. And then talking about energy, but it is the highest price that you can pay here.
So it's easy to set up, but the cost is high.
Yeah, it's easy to have doing business, that's fine.
Right.
Everything is there. But to start, you don't have the means.
Right.
Access to finance, tax is high, and access to energy.
Fantastic. Your closing comments?
My closing comments, I really would advocate to have more SMEs becoming foreign direct investment than big corporates. We are very small. A big guy won't care about you. He will come and pack as soon as he wants. But small enterprises will come, and there will be more transfer of skills and more sizable at our size.
Right.
If we have to advocate, I would go for small size foreign investment.
Pascal, in under a minute.
Yeah, thank you. My closing remark would be the way to go is to close the gap between the training institution and the labor market. So there should be a continuous communication between the two institutions. And the driving factor, again, would be the mindset. So
Right.
we need to engage the young people with changing their mindset,
Right.
so they're able to start small, like everyone was saying. Start small, grow big. So we are engaging the young people through civic education,
Right.
so that they're able to confront the challenges by starting small businesses, and challenging all training institutions to have business incubation centers, so that you can nurture the business idea. These young people have got wonderful ideas. So if we support them, we can see what we are calling the small private sector growing up.
Right.
And of course, there is a big political will that the government is supporting, is behind to support the private sector growing. But if the young people are not employed, they are security problem in future.
Right.
So I think that's why it is taken care from the beginning,
Right.
so that they are meaningful to themselves and to their country.
And a minute. And I know you have to react to those two, but please, your closing
Thank you.
comments.
The way to go, I would actually focus on the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, promoting our homemade products, what we call
Made in Rwanda.
made in Rwanda products. With this SMEs development, I'm sure that many people will get employed, and will solve the problem of unemployment among young people. Another way to go is supporting our private sector to grow. They have been saying themselves that the private sector is small. We cannot keep saying the private sector is small. Once we create an enabling environment sufficient enough for this business to grow, then I'm sure our private sector will go, and they will give employment to many people.
Right.
So that's my take.
I know it's like by law electricity. Final point.
The electricity will be definitely.
That is please. Time is up.
Final point for me is one, addressing the curriculum issue. It's pertinent, it's key, so that we teach what is relevant. And as Albert said, I'm not suggesting these other traditional courses in universities be dropped. You need this generic knowledge. You need to know some geography. You need to. I've had chance to interact with some students, and they tell me, why should I know where River X is? Where should I know the climate of? And I'm, why? He said, I can find on the internet. But I mean, when I am traveling in business, worldwide here and there, I recall my geography. I think I'm in this part of the world. I think they produce this. I think I would rather go this direction. It might be better. So that's important. Curriculum, addressing the curriculum needs that suit our needs. Two, key important thing regionally, let us not train our private sector simply for the small market in Rwanda. We must look beyond. Today's jobs in Rwanda, in Kenya, in East Africa are competed across the region. Occasionally, students from other countries come out top. Each time you make interviews, they come out higher than our own students here. So we need to do that, make them competitive at the regional and continental level. Thirdly,
we have to leave that because we are out of time.
Yes.
Let's
Thirdly, is to
seconds.
manage the expectations in terms of finances.
Right.
There are high expectations which are detached from what the private sector can actually put out as salaries.
Right, Dennis, and that is the absolute final word. Many thanks for watching. We've spent the last few moments discussing unemployment in Rwanda and looking at what are the real opportunities and challenges in this part of East Africa. I've been speaking to Madam Anne Mugabo, who is the Director General of Labour and Employment in the Ministry of Public Service. Also, Dennis Carrera, entrepreneur and chairman of the East African Business Council. I've also had Pascal Gatabazi, principal at the Tumba College of Technology, and Albert Rudatsimburgwa, who is the founder at Contract Trend. My name is Boni Tunya. Thank you for watching.